The small bakery on Maple Street was normally filled with the sweet smell of warm bread, fresh pastries, and soft music. But that morning the bakery felt strangely quiet. Snow fell slowly outside, covering the streets in a soft white blanket. Inside, the lights were warm and soft, giving the place a peaceful feeling. Ethan Grant pushed open the door and stepped inside. He wore a simple gray coat, black gloves, and a scarf. He looked like a normal customer, but no one inside the bakery knew that he was one of the richest men in the city. Ethan didn't like attention. He never talked about money. He always tried to live quietly like an ordinary man. He came to this bakery often. It reminded him of his childhood, of simple days before money and business took over his life. Today he was here to order a cake for a charity event. But the moment he stepped inside, something caught his attention. A young woman stood at the counter with her little boy. She looked tired, very tired. Her clothes were old but clean. Her long hair was tied back, and there were faint dark circles under her eyes. Ethan noticed her hands were shaking slightly as she spoke to the baker. Her son, a small boy around 6 years old, stood beside her holding a small toy car. His face was full of excitement. The birthday cake on the counter was blue, decorated with colorful stars and the number 6 at the top. Ethan realized it was the boy's birthday. The little boy smiled at his mother. "Mommy, is this really my cake? It looks so cool." The mother tried to smile back. "Yes, Noah. I asked them to make it special for you." Noah's eyes sparkled. He looked at the cake as if it were the most beautiful thing in the world. But then the mother's phone buzzed. She checked it quickly and Ethan saw her expression change. Her face went pale. Her eyebrows tightened and her lips trembled. She turned back to the baker. I need to cancel the cake," she said softly. The baker looked confused. "Cancel? But it's ready. You ordered it 3 days ago." The little boy's smile slowly faded. "Cancel?" he asked, his voice small. "Mommy, no birthday cake?" The mother forced a weak smile. "It's okay, Noah. Maybe next time." But Ethan could see the truth in her eyes. There would be no next time. Not soon. She was struggling. The baker asked gently, "Is something wrong?" The mother swallowed and whispered, "My card, it was declined." She lowered her voice even more. "I'm sorry. I thought I had enough money." Noah tugged her sleeve. "Mommy, it's okay. I don't need cake." But the sadness in his voice broke Ethan's heart. The mother tried to keep her tears from falling. She looked at the cake one last time before saying, "Please, just cancel it." The baker sighed sympathetically and began removing the decorations. Ethan stood frozen near the entrance. He felt something heavy inside him. He had seen sadness before, but something about this moment hit him differently. Maybe it was the mother's defeated eyes. Maybe it was the little boy trying to stay brave. Or maybe it was something else, something deeper, that Ethan couldn't explain yet. He stepped forward slowly, trying to understand what he had witnessed. The mother took Noah's hand and walked toward the door. But as she passed by Ethan, the boy looked up at him with a confused, heartbroken expression. Ethan forced a small smile. "Hey, buddy," Noah said softly, "it was going to be my birthday cake, but Mommy said we have to cancel it." Ethan looked at the mother. Her eyes were full of embarrassment and sadness. "I'm sorry," she whispered, avoiding his gaze. "We're holding up the line." Ethan shook his head gently. "You're not." She nodded quickly, trying to escape the moment. She pushed the door open, but because of the snow, it resisted. Ethan stepped forward and held it open for them. "Thank you," she murmured. Noah waved his small toy car at Ethan before they stepped out into the cold. As the door closed, Ethan stood there silently. His heart felt heavy. The scene replayed in his mind. The mother's fear. The boy's disappointment. The canceled cake. Ethan walked toward the counter and spoke to the baker. "What happened?" he asked quietly. The baker sighed. "She couldn't pay. Happens sometimes. But it always hurts more when it's a kid." Ethan looked at the cake. It was beautiful. A cake that took hours to make. A cake that a boy dreamed about. "Keep it aside," Ethan said. "I'll take it." The baker blinked. "You want it?" Ethan nodded. "Yes. And I want to pay for her order too." The baker smiled. "That's kind of you." But Ethan wasn't thinking about kindness. He was thinking about the look in the boy's eyes. Something told him this wasn't just about money. There was a story behind that mother's struggle. Something bigger. Something painful. He didn't know what it was yet, but he wanted to find out. Ethan picked up the cake box and stepped outside into the cold air. The snow was falling harder now. He looked down the street. The mother and her son were walking slowly, their heads bent against the wind. Ethan took a deep breath. He wasn't going to let that child cry on his birthday. Not today. Not while he was here. And with that thought, he began walking after them. Snowflakes fell harder as Ethan stepped into the street, holding the blue cake box carefully in his hands. The cold wind hit his face, but he barely noticed it. His eyes stayed fixed on the mother and her little boy walking ahead of him. They moved slowly, almost as if the weight of their problems made every step heavy. Noah still held his small toy car, dragging it through the air as he walked, but he didn't look excited anymore. The mother kept holding his hand tightly, her shoulders shaking slightly. Ethan hurried his steps. He didn't want to scare them by suddenly appearing behind them, so he approached gently. "Excuse me," he called softly. The mother turned, surprised. Snowflakes stuck to her hair and eyelashes. She blinked when she saw Ethan walking toward them with the cake. "Oh, did we forget something?" she asked nervously. Ethan shook his head. "No. I just wanted to talk to you for a moment." She glanced at the cake box in his hands and looked confused. "Why do you have that?" Ethan took a small breath. "This is your son's cake." The mother stiffened. No, we canceled it. I don't want problems. Please don't do anything like this for us." "It's already paid for," Ethan replied calmly. "And I think your boy deserves a birthday cake." Noah looked at the box with wide hopeful eyes, but he didn't move. It was clear he didn't want to upset his mother. "Mama, is it really my cake?" he whispered. The mother swallowed hard. "No, honey, we can't accept something like." "It's just a cake," Ethan said gently. "Nothing more." But she shook her head. "You don't understand. People don't give us free things. There's always something they want in return." Ethan felt a small sting in his chest. What kind of life had she lived to think that way? "I don't want anything," he said softly. "Just let him enjoy his birthday." She looked at him for a long moment. Snow continued falling around them, the street growing quieter. Cars moved slowly, lights glowing through the storm. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why would a stranger help us?" Ethan thought for a moment before answering. "Because I saw a mother who tried her best. And a boy who stayed strong even when it hurt. That's enough reason." Her eyes softened, but she still hesitated. Noah tugged her hand gently. "Mommy, maybe it's okay?" His innocent voice broke her resistance. She nodded slowly, though her eyes filled with tears. Okay. But please, let me pay you back when I can." "You don't owe me anything," Ethan said. He held the cake out. Noah stepped forward shyly, placing his small hands on the box as if it were a treasure. "Thank you, sir," he whispered. Ethan smiled. "Happy birthday, Noah." The mother wiped her eyes quickly. "Thank you, truly." Ethan noticed her thin jacket, the broken zipper, and the way she tried to hide her cold hands. She was struggling far more than she let anyone see. "Do you two live far from here?" Ethan asked. "A few blocks," she replied. "We're staying in an old apartment building." "Let me walk with you," he offered. "It's freezing." "No," she said quickly. "You've done enough. We will be fine." But as she spoke, a strong wind pushed against them and Noah stumbled a little. Ethan caught him gently. The mother sighed. She knew she couldn't fight the storm. "All right," she finally agreed. "Just until the corner." They began walking together. Noah walked between them, holding the cake like it was something magical. Ethan glanced at the mother. "What's your name?" "Jasmine," she answered softly. "And this is Noah." "Nice to meet you both," Ethan said. Jasmine looked down as she walked. "I'm sorry you had to see what happened in the bakery. I tried to save enough money, but life doesn't always go the way we want." "You don't need to explain," Ethan said gently. But Jasmine shook her head. "I do. Because people think single mothers make bad choices. They think we are lazy or careless. But I work 2 jobs. And still, some days I can't give my son the simple things he deserves." Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. Ethan felt something shift inside him. Respect. "You're stronger than you think," he said. She smiled weakly. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired." Noah looked up at his mother. "Mommy, when we get home, can we light candles?" She nodded and forced a smile. "Yes, baby. We will celebrate." A car passed by, splashing slush on the road. Jasmine moved Noah to the inside so he wouldn't get wet. Ethan noticed every small thing she did. Every gesture of protection. Every sacrifice. Finally, they reached a narrow street with old apartment buildings. Jasmine pointed toward a tall, worn-out building with cracked walls and broken lights. "That's us," she said quietly. Ethan looked at the building and felt another heaviness in his chest. No child should grow up like this. No mother should feel so alone. Jasmine looked at him again. Thank you for today. You didn't have to follow us, but you did. That means something. Ethan nodded. If you need anything. She shook her head quickly. No. This is enough. Really? But Ethan felt deep inside. This wasn't the end. He had a feeling this meeting would change everything. For them. And for him. Ethan watched Jasmine and Noah enter the old, broken apartment building. The door made a loud creaking sound as it closed behind them. Snow covered the streets and cold wind shook the weak streetlight above. He stood there for a long moment, holding his coat tighter around himself. Something inside him refused to leave. He had seen many sad situations in life, but this felt different. Maybe it was the way Jasmine tried to stay strong. Maybe it was the way little Noah held the cake like it was a miracle. Whatever it was, Ethan felt he couldn't walk away. But he also didn't want to scare them or make them uncomfortable. So he walked back to his car slowly, still thinking about them. Inside the apartment building, Jasmine pushed open the door to their small one-room home. Paint peeled from the walls. The lights flickered weakly. A small heater in the corner struggled to warm the room. "Mommy, it's cold," Noah whispered. "I know, baby," Jasmine replied softly. "The heater is old, but it will warm up soon." But she knew it wouldn't. It had been weak for months and the landlord never fixed anything. Noah placed the cake carefully on the little table. The table had scratches and wobbled slightly, but he handled the cake like a priceless treasure. "Can we light the candle now?" he asked excitedly. Jasmine forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart. Let me find one." She opened a drawer, searching. There were only a few candles left, thin, mismatched ones. She pulled out a small blue candle and placed it gently on the cake. Noah's eyes sparkled with joy. Before lighting it, Jasmine looked at her son for a long moment. He was smiling, really smiling. After days of struggle, seeing that smile made her heart soften. She lit the candle. The small flame glowed in the dim room. "Make a wish, Noah," Jasmine whispered. Noah closed his eyes. His small hands pressed together. He stayed silent for a few seconds. Then he opened his eyes and blew out the candle. "What did you wish for?" Jasmine asked gently. "I wished that you don't cry at night anymore," Noah said quietly. Jasmine froze. Her heart broke. She didn't know Noah had seen her crying. She always waited until he fell asleep. She always cried quietly, covering her mouth so he wouldn't hear. But children always know. She hugged him tightly. "Oh baby. I'm okay. Mommy is strong." Noah hugged her back. "I know, Mommy. But I want you to be happy." Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them quickly. "Come on, let's cut the cake." Noah cut it with a smile and they both ate small slices. The cake was soft, sweet, and delicious. It felt like a real birthday celebration, even if everything else around them was broken. Outside, Ethan sat in his car, staring at the building. He didn't start the engine. He couldn't leave. He kept thinking, how many nights did this child sleep hungry? How many days did this mother hide her pain just to stay strong? How many families like this exist right under his nose? He had money. He had resources. He had power. But all those things felt useless if he couldn't help people like Jasmine and Noah. Finally, after a long hesitation, he decided to go back. He stepped inside the old building and climbed the stairs, the smell of damp walls and dust filling the hallway. He reached their door and stopped. He didn't want to invade their privacy. So he knocked gently. Inside, Jasmine stiffened. She looked toward the door with worry. "No, I'll stay here," she whispered. She opened the door slightly and gasped when she saw Ethan standing there. "Mr. Carter?" she said, startled. "Is everything okay?" "Sorry for coming back," Ethan said softly. I just wanted to make sure you both were safe." Jasmine looked down. "We're fine. Really. You don't need to worry about us." But Ethan could see the cold room behind her. He could see Noah sitting near the cake, wrapped in a thin blanket. "It looks freezing in here," he said gently. Jasmine tried to block the doorway a little. She didn't want him to see too much. "The heater is old," she admitted quietly. "But we manage." Ethan lowered his voice. "Let me help." "No," she replied quickly. "You already did too much today. I don't want your pity." "It's not pity," Ethan said firmly. "It's basic kindness." She hesitated. A strong cold wind blew through the hallway, making her shiver. Even then she tried to stay strong. "You don't know us," she whispered. "Why do you care so much?" Ethan looked her in the eyes. "Because no child should spend his birthday in a freezing room," he said. "And no mother should feel this alone." Jasmine looked away, tears forming. She stepped back slightly, allowing him to see their small apartment clearly. The cracked walls, the broken heater, the worn-out bed, the small table with the cake. Ethan's chest tightened. "Please," he said softly. "Let me do something." Jasmine stood silent for a long moment. Then Noah peeked from behind her and whispered, "Mommy, he's nice." Jasmine's eyes softened. She took a deep breath. "Okay," she whispered. "You can come inside." And that moment became the beginning of a change none of them expected. Ethan stepped inside the apartment slowly, making sure Jasmine didn't feel uncomfortable. The room was dim, the weak bulb flickering now and then. A cold draft slipped through the cracks in the window. The heater hummed softly, but it wasn't enough to warm the space. Noah sat near the table, his small hands wrapped around a cup of warm water. It wasn't tea or milk, just hot water from the stove. Still, he held it like it was something special. When he saw Ethan come in, his eyes brightened. "You came back," the boy said in a small, happy voice. Ethan smiled. "Yes. I wanted to make sure you had a good birthday." Jasmine closed the door behind them. She looked nervous, almost embarrassed, and tried to hide the worn-out parts of the room with her body. Ethan noticed but didn't comment. He knew this wasn't a place someone wanted others to see. "Please, sit," Jasmine said quietly, pointing to a small chair near the table. Ethan sat, and the chair creaked under him. He looked around discreetly. There was only one bed in the corner. A few blankets folded on the floor. A tiny kitchen with barely any food on the shelves. "What happened to your heater?" he asked softly. "It breaks often," Jasmine replied. "Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The landlord says he'll fix it, but he never does." "And you can't move?" Ethan asked gently. Jasmine shook her head. "The rent here is the cheapest I can find. Everywhere else is too expensive." Noah chimed in. "Sometimes Mommy and I sleep close together so we don't feel cold." Jasmine quickly touched his shoulder to stop him from talking. But Ethan had already heard enough. He leaned forward. "Jasmine, can I ask something?" She looked hesitant but nodded. "Why were you canceling the cake today? What happened?" For a moment, Jasmine didn't speak. She looked at the floor, her fingers tightening around each other. The silence in the room grew thick. Then she whispered, "I lost one of my jobs." Ethan straightened. "When?" "3 weeks ago," she said softly. "I used to work nights at a cleaning company. But they reduced staff. I was one of the people they let go." "And the other job?" "I still work at a cafe," she replied. "But the pay is small. And sometimes they cut my hours." Ethan felt himself getting angry, not at her but at the world that allowed people like her to struggle this much. Noah spoke again in his innocent voice. "Mommy said we would still celebrate. Even if it's just us." Jasmine wiped her eyes quickly, not wanting Ethan to see her cry. "I tried to save for the cake," she said. "But last night the electricity bill came. And if I didn't pay it they would cut the power. So I had to choose." Her voice cracked. "My son's birthday, or keeping the lights on?" Ethan felt a lump in his throat. He couldn't imagine a mother having to make such choices. "You did the best you could," Ethan said softly. She looked up with sad eyes. "No, I failed. A good mother wouldn't let her child live like this." "You're wrong," Ethan said firmly. "A bad mother doesn't try. A good mother sacrifices everything. And today, you proved how strong you are." Jasmine looked away again, tears slipping down her cheeks. Noah walked over and hugged her leg. "Mommy is the best," he said proudly. Ethan smiled at the boy. "You're right, Noah." But Jasmine wasn't done explaining. "There's something else," she whispered. "Something I didn't tell you." Ethan leaned in. "What is it?" She hesitated for a long moment. Then, "I have no family," she confessed. "No parents. No siblings. No one to watch Noah when I work. No one to help when things get hard." Ethan's heart tightened again. "I moved here from another state 2 years ago," she continued. "I hoped for a better life. But things didn't go the way I expected." Ethan nodded. "That happens to many people. Life doesn't always follow our plans." "But Noah is all I have," she whispered. "And I'm all he has." The room felt silent again. Then she added quietly, "I wasn't supposed to tell you all this. You're a stranger. But when you bought the cake, and followed us home, I felt like maybe you're someone who truly cares." Ethan took a breath. He did care. More than he should for someone he just met. But something about Jasmine and Noah felt important. Like fate had put them in his path for a reason. He finally asked, "Jasmine, have you ever thought about getting help? From an organization?" A social worker? She shook her head quickly. No. I don't want them taking Noah away. Some people say if a mother is struggling, they step in. Ethan shook his head gently. They don't take children away from loving parents. And you're clearly a loving parent. Jasmine looked relieved, but still unsure. Then something unexpected happened. The lights suddenly flickered and went out. The room dropped into darkness. Oh no, Jasmine whispered. Not again. Noah held her hand tightly. Mommy? I'm scared. In the darkness, Ethan could hear Jasmine moving toward the small drawer, trying to find a candle. But before she could, Ethan pulled out his phone flashlight, filling the room with soft white light. Noah looked up at him and whispered, "Thank you." Ethan smiled. "Don't worry. We'll fix this." Jasmine looked at him in the soft light, her eyes full of fear and hope mixed together. And Ethan knew at that moment, he wasn't going to leave them in this darkness. Not tonight. Not ever again. The room stayed dark except for the soft glow of Ethan's phone flashlight. The weak beam landed on the cracked walls, the small table, the cold floor, and Noah's worried face. Jasmine searched frantically through the drawer until she found a matchbox and a half-used candle. Her hands shook slightly as she lit the candle. The flame flickered, casting long shadows around the room. "I'm so sorry for this," she whispered. "It happens often." Ethan watched her carefully. The look in her eyes wasn't embarrassment, it was fear. Fear that he would judge her. Fear that he would walk away. But Ethan didn't move. "It's not your fault," he said softly. Noah sat on the bed, pulling the thin blanket around himself. "Mommy, will the lights come back?" he asked. Jasmine forced a smile. "Yes, baby, just give it some time." But Ethan could tell she didn't believe her own words. He walked slowly toward the window. Cold air leaked through the cracks. The storm outside was getting worse. Snow hit the glass hard, and the streetlight outside flickered just like the one inside. Ethan turned back to them. "Has this happened before?" he asked calmly. Jasmine sighed. "Many times." "And the landlord?" Ethan asked. "Does he fix anything?" "No," she said bitterly. "He doesn't care. He just wants rent on time." Ethan clenched his jaw. He was used to dealing with powerful businessmen, lawyers, investors. But the sight of a mother struggling in the dark made him angrier than any deal gone wrong in his life. "How long has Noah lived like this?" he asked softly. Jasmine looked down. "Since he was born." Noah looked at his mother with wide eyes. "Mommy, are we poor?" Her lips trembled. She didn't want her son to feel shame. "We're not poor," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "We just have challenges. But we have each other." Ethan felt something twist in his chest. She was trying so hard. Too hard for someone carrying everything alone. He stepped closer. "Jasmine," he said quietly, "can I ask one more thing?" She nodded. "How much do you owe for electricity?" For a moment she hesitated. Then she said the number softly, almost ashamed, $230. Ethan blinked. That was all? Such a small amount, yet big enough to push them into darkness. He kept his voice gentle. "Let me help." "No," Jasmine said quickly. "Please, you've already done enough." "You don't even know who I am," Ethan said kindly. "You don't know what I can do. Let me make things easier." But Jasmine shook her head. "People don't help for free. Not in this world." Ethan knelt on one knee so he was at eye level with her. "I'm not here to take anything from you." She looked at him with uncertain eyes. "Then why? Why are you doing this?" He took a small breath. "Because I've had everything in life except one thing, warmth," he said slowly. "Real warmth. The kind a family gives. The kind you showed your son tonight." Jasmine looked confused. "But you look like someone who has everything." Ethan smiled sadly. "Money doesn't make a home. People do." Jasmine lowered her gaze. For the first time, she realized Ethan didn't see her as a charity case. He saw her as a strong woman doing the best she could. "But still," she whispered, "I don't want my son to depend on others. I don't want him to grow up thinking someone always needs to save us." Ethan nodded respectfully. "And you're right. But every hero needs a hand sometimes." Noah looked at Ethan too, his small voice soft. "Sir, will you stay until the lights come back?" That question hit Ethan right in the heart. "Yes," he said immediately. "I'll stay." A long silence filled the room. Jasmine finally took a seat on the bed beside Noah. Ethan sat on the chair near the table. The candle flickered gently between them. The small flame made the shadows feel less scary. A few minutes passed before Jasmine spoke again. "I haven't told you everything," she whispered. Ethan looked up slowly. You don't have to if you don't want to. But she took a deep breath. She needed to let it out. When Noah's father found out I was pregnant, he left, she said quietly. He didn't even wait. He just walked out and never came back. Ethan's eyes softened. I was young, she continued. I thought I could handle everything alone. But I wasn't ready. I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong people. So, I had nothing. She looked at her small apartment. This is all I could give my son. Ethan leaned forward. Jasmine, giving him love is more important than anything you could buy. She looked surprised. No one has ever said that to me. That's because no one saw what I saw, he replied. A mother who fights every day. A child who feels safe because of her. Jasmine shook her head slowly. I don't feel strong. You are, Ethan said firmly. Stronger than most people I know. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time she didn't hide them. Thank you, she whispered. Outside, the storm raged louder, but inside the apartment, a strange calm settled. The three of them sat together, almost like a small family. Minutes turned into an hour. Noah slowly lay down, falling asleep in Jasmine's lap. She stroked his hair gently. Ethan watched quietly. He had attended $1,000 dinners, luxury parties, business meetings, but none of those moments felt as peaceful as this one small, cold room. Then suddenly, the lights came back. The heater whirred alive. Warmth slowly spread through the room. Noah woke up slightly and smiled. Mommy, the lights are back. Jasmine smiled softly. Yes, baby. Ethan stood up. Let me fix the rest. Jasmine looked confused. What do you mean? Ethan walked toward the door. For tonight, he said softly, you're not alone anymore. He didn't tell her yet, but he had already made a decision. He was going to change their lives. Forever. The warm light glowing inside the apartment made everything look different. The shadows melted away. The room didn't look perfect, but it looked alive. Safe. Even hopeful. Noah lay curled under a blanket, already drifting back to sleep. His little face looked peaceful, and his breathing became soft and steady. Jasmine watched him with gentle eyes before turning toward Ethan. You stayed longer than anyone ever has, she said quietly. Ethan shook his head. I stayed because I wanted to. Not because I had to. Jasmine hesitated, then took Noah's blanket and placed it more carefully over him. She kept her voice low. Most people see a single mother and think she made bad choices, she whispered. They think we are weak. Ethan stepped closer. Wait. Jasmine, you walked through freezing streets tonight carrying your son's pain and your own. That is not weakness. Her eyes shimmered with emotion. A few seconds passed before she finally asked him, You said earlier, I don't know who you are. What did you mean by that? Ethan took a small breath. It was time. He reached into his coat and pulled out a slim, metallic business card. Simple, clean, and elegant. He handed it to her. Jasmine looked at it carefully. Blue River Holdings. Ethan Carter, CO. Her eyes widened. She looked up, stunned. You're the Ethan Carter? The billionaire everyone talks about on the news. Ethan nodded slowly. Yes. She stepped back in shock. Her voice trembled. You run the biggest tech company in the state. You're famous. Ethan tried to smile. Famous doesn't mean good. It just means people know your name. Jasmine stared at the card again, then at him. You're a billionaire, she whispered. And you bought my son a cake? Why wouldn't I? Ethan replied calmly. A cake isn't a gift. It's a moment. A memory. Every child deserves one. Jasmine shook her head in disbelief. I don't understand. You could be anywhere tonight. Why are you here in a place like this? Ethan walked closer to her, speaking softly. Because sometimes the places we least expect hold the people who need us the most. Jasmine's voice cracked. But you don't know us. But I want to, Ethan said quietly. Her breath caught. But before she could respond, someone knocked loudly on the door. Bam, bam, bam. Jasmine jumped. Noah stirred in his sleep. She immediately moved in front of Noah protectively. It's probably the landlord, she whispered nervously. He sometimes comes at night to ask for rent. Ethan frowned. At night? Jasmine nodded. If you don't pay on time, he threatens to lock the door from the outside. Ethan clenched his jaw. That's illegal. He doesn't care, she whispered. Another loud knock. Ethan stepped forward. May I? Jasmine nodded anxiously. Ethan opened the door. The landlord, a heavy man with a stained jacket and angry eyes, stood there. Jasmine. Rent is. He stopped mid-sentence when he saw Ethan. Who are you? He demanded. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I'm the man who's telling you this woman will no longer be treated this way, he said calmly. The landlord scoffed. What? Who do you think you are? Ethan handed him a card. The landlord read it and his face went pale. I'll pay her rent for the next 3 months, Ethan said firmly. And tomorrow morning, you will fix her heater, her windows, and every broken thing in that apartment. I can't do. You can, Ethan said. Or I'll buy this entire building and fire you. The landlord froze. Jasmine covered her mouth in shock. The landlord swallowed hard. What? Yes, sir. It'll be done. Ethan stepped forward slightly. And one more thing. Stop knocking on doors at night. If you bother her again, I'll make sure you never manage another property. The landlord nodded quickly and rushed down the hallway. Ethan closed the door gently. Jasmine stared at him, speechless. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, Ethan said softly. I did. Tears filled her eyes again. Why are you helping us so much? Ethan walked closer, his voice calm and honest. Because wealth means nothing if it can't protect someone, he said. And tonight, you and Noah needed protection. Jasmine wiped her tears slowly. Thank you, she whispered. But I don't know how to repay you. Ethan shook his head with a warm smile. You don't repay kindness. You pass it on. Jasmine looked at him, really looked at him, like seeing him for the first time. For years she had lived with fear, stress, loneliness, but this moment felt different. Like someone finally stood beside her. Noah woke up and rubbed his eyes. Mommy, what happened? Jasmine kissed his forehead. Nothing, baby. Everything is okay now. Noah looked at Ethan sleepily. Are you going home now? Ethan paused. He looked at the storm outside, the snow still falling hard. Then he looked at this small family who had let him into their world so open-heartedly. No, he said softly. If it's okay, I'll stay a little longer. Noah nodded happily and lay back down. Jasmine smiled softly. You can stay. Ethan sat down again. And for the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't alone either. Morning arrived slowly, with soft sunlight touching the edges of the small apartment. The blizzard had stopped, leaving a quiet, calm silence outside. Snow covered the streets, the rooftops, and the cars, but inside the apartment the air felt warm for the first time in a long time. Jasmine opened her eyes and sat up from the old couch. She looked around and saw something she had never expected. Ethan was sleeping on the floor, his coat rolled under his head like a pillow. And Noah was sleeping peacefully, his small hand resting on Ethan's sleeve. Jasmine smiled softly. Last night felt like a dream, an unbelievable, impossible dream. A billionaire had walked into her life. He had seen her pain. He had helped her son. He had protected them. And he had stayed. She stood up quietly and walked into the kitchen. She found 1 tea bag, half a packet of sugar, and a chipped mug. That was all she could offer. But she wanted to offer something. She boiled water on the small stove. A few minutes later, Noah woke up first. He rubbed his eyes and whispered, Mommy, is the cake still here? Jasmine laughed softly. Yes, baby. It's in the fridge. Noah's eyes shined with excitement. Then Ethan opened his eyes and sat up slowly. His hair was messy and his expensive shirt had wrinkles, but he smiled. Good morning, he said. Good morning, Jasmine replied shyly. Atameti. It's not much. It's perfect, Ethan said warmly. He took the mug from her and sat at the small table. Noah jumped onto his chair beside him. Do you want cake for breakfast? Noah asked with innocent joy. Ethan laughed. Cake for breakfast? That sounds like a great idea. Jasmine shook her head and smiled. You too. She cut 3 small slices and for the first time in a long time, they shared a breakfast that felt joyful. Noah took a bite and said, This is the best birthday ever. Jasmine looked at him, then at Ethan. Her eyes softened with gratitude. Yes, it is. A knock on the door, but this time different. Around mid-morning, the broken heater suddenly hummed to life. Warm air filled the room. Then they heard footsteps outside and another knock on the door. Jasmine tensed, but Ethan stood up before she could. He opened the door. The landlord stood there, sweating, wearing cleaner clothes than last night. Miss Jasmine, he said nervously, I fixed the heater. And the windows. And I'll bring a new stove later today. Ethan folded his arms. Good. Yes, sir. Very good, sir. The landlord almost bowed as he hurried away. Ethan closed the door and looked at Jasmine with a small smile. She shook her head in disbelief. You really scared him. I didn't scare him, Ethan said. His behavior scared him. They both laughed softly. A new beginning. After breakfast, Ethan stood near the window and looked out at the snow-covered world. Jasmine came and stood beside him. You probably have work today, she said quietly. Ethan nodded. Yes, I do. Her smile faded a little. So, you'll be leaving soon. Ethan turned toward her, his expression gentle. Jasmine, last night showed me something important. What do you mean? I spend my days in tall buildings and big meetings talking about money and numbers, but I forgot something. She looked at him curiously. Forgot what? That the world outside has real people, with real problems, and real hearts. Jasmine lowered her eyes. But you helped us. That means something. It means everything, Ethan said softly. There was a long pause, comfortable, warm, meaningful. Then Ethan took a breath. I want to help you more, he said. Not just with rent. Not just for one night. Jasmine's heart stopped. What do you mean? She whispered. Ethan spoke slowly, sincerely. You're strong. You're kind. You work hard. And you deserve opportunities, not struggles. She swallowed. Ethan, what are you saying? I want to offer you a job, he said. Jasmine gasped quietly. A job? Me? Yes. You can work in my company's community support department. You understand the needs of real families. You can help design programs to support them. He paused. And you can give Noah the stable life he deserves. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears again. No one has ever offered me something like this, she whispered. Why would you choose me? Ethan smiled softly. Because you were brave enough to cancel a birthday cake if it meant protecting your son. That kind of heart is rare. Tears rolled down her cheeks, slow, soft, and full of emotion. Ethan, thank you. Thank you so much. He stepped closer and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. You don't owe me anything, Ethan said. But if you accept this, your life will change. Jasmine nodded slowly, her voice trembling. I accept. Noah came running toward them with a toy car. Mommy? My car goes fast. Jasmine hugged him tightly. Baby, everything is going to be okay now. Ethan watched them with a calm, warm smile. Walking into a new future. 1 hour later, Ethan called a company car to pick them up. The driver looked surprised when Ethan helped Jasmine and Noah into the back seat before sitting in the front himself. The city looked brighter as they drove through it. Jasmine held Noah's hand, and Ethan occasionally looked back at them. He felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. When they reached Blue River headquarters, employees looked shocked. Their billionaire CEO. Arriving with a single mother and her child? But Ethan didn't care. He led them through the